So we are grappling with a concept today that, well, it sits right at that intersection of philosophy and, I guess, policy. It's this core kind of deceptively simple question. What is the fundamental difference between what is strictly legal and, what is truly right, morally right?
Yeah, that's a huge one. And it's everywhere when you start looking.
It really is. Our sources for this deep dive, they reflect on this widening gap, a place where laws, which we think of as the formal expression of justice, right?
Supposedly, yes.
They seem to actively betray life sometimes, or just basic human decency, or even common sense. We're exploring systems that maybe, perhaps unintentionally, end up fostering indifference. They create injustice instead of preventing it.
It's a really necessary investigation, I think, and the sources, they immediately hit you with this powerful paradox.
Okay.
The author notes that, well, too often, the legal framework seems structured more to protect authority.
Right.
Establish borders, institutions, profit margins, rather than protecting life itself, the actual well-being of the person.
That's a stark contrast.
It is, and when you have that kind of shift in priority, the almost inevitable outcome is that complex, contributing human beings, your neighbors, people you work with, maybe even family members, they get reduced.
How so?
In the cold mechanism of the law, they just become criminals or cases or maybe just problems that need to be managed or solved.
Just labels.
Exactly.
Okay, let's unpack this then. If that's the reality we're looking at, then we need to explore how history kind of constantly reinforces this point. And maybe more frighteningly, how our current systems use this cold, faceless machinery of bureaucracy to normalize it all, to achieve this sort of total moral indifference.
Yeah, and what's fascinating there is how quickly society seems to seek the comfort of label.
Comfort, that's an interesting word for it.
Well, think about the terms that float around all the time. Illegal, undeserving, a criminal element, maybe alien. These labels are incredibly convenient, really.
Convenient.
Because they act like a moral shortcut. They save us the trouble.
Right. They absolutely are shortcuts. They let us off the hook, don't they?
Right.
Save us from the difficult, messy, complicated task of actually confronting the reality of a real human life.
Exactly. The circumstances that led that person to where they are, the desperation maybe behind their choices, the full complexity of their story.
Yeah, if you could just slap a neat legal label on someone, then you don't have to look too closely at the human being behind it. You can just sort of file them away.
Precisely. And the sources detail the, frankly, staggering speed at which a person's inherent dignity is just stripped away the moment these labels are applied.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Imagine someone who has spent decades building a community, maybe working a steady job, paying taxes, establishing really deep roots.
Right.
All of that contribution, that history, can be erased, literally overnight, with one single legal designation.
Poof. Gone. The paperwork takes precedence over the personhood.
That's exactly.
The sources mention a brutal example, I think, of a woman who raised children, anchored her neighborhood, contributed vital services.
Yeah, yes.
But the second a legal label gets attached, she's just nothing more than a case file number,
Right.
sitting on a stack somewhere in a dimly lit office.
It's dehumanizing. And the author makes this incredibly relatable by reflecting on their own experience, being labeled in different situations, manager, worker, foreigner, dreamer.
Oh, so they've seen it from multiple sides.
Exactly. And they observe that these labels aren't just descriptive words, they're prescriptive. They actively shape reality.
What do you mean?
They carry this unilateral power to either open doors for you or slam them shut, to grant you dignity or strip it away completely. They basically define who is allowed to matter within that particular system.
Wow. So once you accept that system of labeling, that legal reduction of people, you really have to ask the bigger question, don't you? When has the law on its own ever been the final word on right and wrong?
That's the critical pivot point, I think.
Yeah.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, history is constantly reminding us, often in the most painful ways imaginable, that legality is absolutely not the same thing as morality.
Yeah. When people hear that, they usually jump straight to the big, obvious historical examples. And they should, right?
Absolutely. We have to confront it.
We have to face the fact that, slavery was once perfectly legal, protected by law. Segregation was legal, enshrined in law. The brutal exploitation of workers, even children, that was upheld by the full force of the legal system.
And in every single one of those cases, every one of those eras, what was the primary justification? What was the sort of bulletproof rhetorical shield used by those in power?
It's the law.
Simply, But it's the law. The law provided this comfortable, almost respectable framework for profound moral failure. It turned a person's human right into an owner's property right. It turned the ideal of equal opportunity into mandated legal separation.
It's sobering, isn't it?
Yeah.
To realize that for the powerful, law isn't always about justice.
Yeah.
Often it's just a tool for controlling the limits of what cruelty is considered acceptable.
That's a harsh way to put it, but yes. Yeah. And the author really challenges us here. Take that painful historical mirror and turn it towards us right now.
Yeah.
What modern injustices, things happening today, committed and protected by current legislation? What are future generations going to look back on with just utter disbelief and shame?
And that's where it gets really interesting, because we kind of like to believe we've evolved past those massive moral failures.
You do.
But the source argues we're maybe just substituting new ones.
That's the argument. They flag 3 specific major areas as our potential future moral failures, things we're doing now under the color of law.
Okay, what are they?
First, they point directly to this global trend of criminalizing migration, treating human beings who are seeking safety or maybe just opportunity, not as people, but as national security threats or just case management problems.
Right, reducing them again.
The second is the continued structural punishment of poverty. We don't just, neglect the poor. We often actively legislate against their very existence in public spaces. Think about anti-homeless laws, for example.
Yeah, making it illegal to simply exist without resources.
Exactly. And the third one, this is perhaps the most existential, is the systematic legal destruction of the planet.
How so?
The poisoning of rivers, the clear-cutting of ancient forests, all committed and sanctioned legally in the name of relentless economic growth.
Growth above all else.
Growth above all else. And in each of these cases, the key point is that the cruelties aren't happening despite the law. They are actively protected by the law.
So the law itself provides the cover.
It provides the cover. It's cruelty dressed up in legal robes, given the stamp of, governmental legitimacy.
So what allows this systemic indifference to just flourish? How does it keep going?
The sources identify the mechanism perfectly, I think. Bureaucracy.
Yes. The machine itself.
It's what allows the state, or any large organization, really, to apply these moral failings impersonally. The sources describe it as faceless, mechanical, and indifferent.
And it creates that sense of helplessness, doesn't it? Because you're not fighting a single bad person. You're fighting a process.
It's a machine that just processes inputs.
Mm-hmm.
And if your life, your situation, doesn't fit the predefined output criteria, well, the machine just carries on without a glitch. There's no moral component built into the gearbox, so to speak.
Anyone listening who has ever had to deal with some illogical government form or a totally Kafkaesque bureaucratic process, they understand this intimately.
Oh, absolutely.
The rule is stupid or inefficient or even damaging. But the person may be sitting across the desk from you who might even personally agree with you.
They often do.
They just shrug and say, look, I'm sorry, my hands are tied. The system requires this technicality.
Rules are rules.
Rules are rules. And a simple technicality, a missing form you didn't even know you needed, a deadline missed by maybe 2 hours, a signature that wasn't notarized in exactly the right way.
Tiny things.
Tiny things can instantaneously throw entire stable lives into utter chaos. And crucially, the system, it never apologizes, it never reflects, it just states rules are rules.
Which brings up this really important question the author presses hard on. Is the law truly neutral? Is it objective? Is it blind, like that classic image of Lady Justice suggests?
We like to think so.
We do. But the sources argue pretty vehemently that this supposed neutrality is actually an illusion. It's a very effective disguise, in fact.
A disguise for what?
Because laws are written by people. And people serve particular interests. Laws are essentially codified preferences, often reflecting the preferences of the powerful.
And that illusion of neutrality just completely shatters when you look at how enforcement differs, right?
Oh, definitely.
You contrast how individual mistakes are treated versus, say, corporate ones.
Yes, exactly. Think about it. An individual makes a single mistake, often born out of desperation, like crossing a border without papers, or forgetting a key document, or breaking some petty regulation.
What happens?
They can lose everything. Their jobs, their family, their home, everything they've built. The consequence is often total devastation.
Okay, now flip that. What about the corporate side?
Right. A massive corporation exploits thousands of workers, maybe poisons an entire river system, manipulates the economy in a way that ruins countless small investors.
And the consequence is?
Typically a fine. And usually a fine so small relative to their profits that it barely registers as a loss on their quarterly statement.
It's just the cost of doing business.
It's factored in. It's not a real deterrent. And this is where we hit one of the most powerful phrases in the sources. The author calls this biased power disguised as order.
Biased power disguised as order. Wow.
Yeah. The system maintains this illusion of objective order by punishing small individual infractions very harshly.
Making an example of them.
Right. While the powerful interests, who often had a hand in writing the rules in the first place, can treat their own much larger infractions as mere business expenses, the law isn't neutral. It's selectively applied based on power.
That makes the whole task of reform feel, well, overwhelming. If the law itself is just reflecting existing power structures, where do you even start?
Well, you start, I think, by recognizing a fundamental truth. Laws do not spontaneously align themselves with justice. They never have.
History shows that pretty clearly.
History proves again and again they only change when people demand it. When enough ordinary citizens refuse to let bureaucracy just erase their compassion.
So it's about public pressure.
It's about public pressure, and it's about individual choices. Justice only moves forward when people reject the comfort of those easy, dehumanizing labels and insist on seeing the full, complex humanity of the person who's been turned into a case file.
Exactly. And that kind of shifts the focus, doesn't it? Maybe less from trying to reform Congress overnight and more towards reforming our own daily mindset.
Yes.
It highlights the power of small individual choices, acts of resistance maybe, that are available to every single one of us right now.
Like what, specifically?
Well, like choosing consciously not to repeat the dehumanizing language we hear constantly in the news, on social media, wherever.
Yeah.
It means choosing to actually listen to someone's personal story before we jump to judging their legal status.
Yeah.
It's about constantly remembering that every single person's story is vast, it's complex, and it's way, way larger than any single rule book or legal category they've been squeezed into.
And there's a beautiful synthesis the author offers here. They point out that this feeling of being crushed by faceless rules, of having your life measured only in numbers, of being told you don't count because of some technicality, that feeling is actually universal. It connects the marginalized immigrant with the frustrated small business owner tangled in red tape, or the teacher drowning in paperwork. It's a shared human frustration with a system that's become too rigid, too mechanical.
That shared feeling is powerful.
It is. So what does this all boil down to? Where do the sources lead us?
It seems like a pretty definitive conclusion.
I think so. The ultimate measure of a society isn't found in the paper chains of its laws or the sheer efficiency of its bureaucracy, but in its core humanity, how it treats people.
We have to hold on to that core, maybe challenging belief that legality is secondary. It's important, but it's secondary to the profound intrinsic value of a human life. Humanity is the only measure that truly matters in the end.
Absolutely. And that leaves you, the listener, with this ultimate challenging principle. It's for personal reflection, drawn straight from the heart of the source material we looked at.
What is it?
If a law betrays life, then it is the law that is wrong, not the person.
Wow. That's a powerful statement to end on.
It is, and it charges us, really, with this constant necessary duty to always question the difference between just mere legal compliance, ticking the boxes, and genuine moral responsibility. In every part of our lives,